With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. ECCB highlights young women leaders in IT on Girls in ICT Day. Director of Public Prosecutions Adlai Smith updates nation on charges in 2 fatal road incidents amidst calls for greater road safety vigilance. Cannabis-related crimes persist as St. Kitts and Nevis continues legal cannabis industry push with launch of Medicinal Cannabis Authority. The family of Adriana Young has no confidence in the Guyana Police Force leading probe. Preparations for Madrid Protocol entry accession are underway in Grenada. Internationally, Pope Francis's funeral, respects paid to Roman Catholic leader. Now, the details. In honor of Girls in ICT Day, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank ECCB proudly spotlights the talented young women of its Management of Information Systems Department. These women share their inspiring journeys in information technology and reflect on this year's theme, Girls in ICT for Inclusive Digital Transformation. Janiel Brathwaite, Systems Analyst and Unit Head of Management of Information Systems at ECCB, reflects on the origins of her passion for technology.
Growing up, I have always been an avid lover of technology. And that spark stemmed from my brother, who at the time was studying information technology. Eventually, that spark grew from a passion when I got into secondary school and was exposed to the subject information technology, where I discovered I was really good at it. And from since then, I have developed a career in information technology as well as furthered my education.
She describes the transformative potential of IT in all sectors.
Information technology is one of the few fields that touches every aspect of life. Healthcare, education, finance, entertainment, you name it. And when done right, digital transformation has the opportunity to break down barriers and ensure that everyone gets a seat at the table. IT, has the power to connect us, empower us, and ensure that no one gets left behind, especially in a world that is constantly evolving.
For Zende Magloire, Information Security Analyst at ECCB's Management of Information Systems Department, a deep passion for cybersecurity took root early in her studies.
I really developed a passion for cybersecurity after just one semester of school. I learned a lot about the cyber threats and cyber attacks that happen each day, and I was really inspired by learning how we can prevent and protect ourselves from those attacks. So once I graduated, I decided to stick with that and pursue a career in IT.
Reflecting on her experience as one of the few girls in her IT classes, she encourages young women not to be deterred by challenges.
I was actually one of the only girls in most of my IT classes when I was in school, and I didn't let it stop me. I once heard someone say that the world is filled with people who are waiting to tell you no, so don't allow yourself to be the first to do it. Don't tell yourself no, you have to be the one to tell yourself yes and believe in yourself. Know that you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Zahara James, Technical Assistant at ECCB Management of Information System Department, emphasizes the connective power of IT globally.
IT has the unique ability to connect many persons across the world, whether through accessible education or telemedicine or even digital collaborative tool. IT brings many persons together across the world.
Offering heartfelt advice to girls aspiring to enter the field, she emphasizes the importance of embarking on the journey with confidence.
My words of encouragement to girls who want to pursue a career in IT is just that. Don't be discouraged to start because you feel as if you might fail, because as you gain more experience and knowledge, you can become one of the best IT professionals in the field, just like me.
Through these insightful perspectives, the ECCB honors Girls in ICT Day by championing the crucial role young women play in shaping an inclusive digital future, one that promises to break down barriers and empower all members of society. Their stories reflect not only a personal triumph, but also signal hopeful progress toward greater gender equity in the ICT sector. The message is clear: digital transformation thrives when diversity and inclusion are at the core. The Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Adlai Smith, has provided a comprehensive update to the Federation regarding the status of investigations into 2 tragic and fatal vehicular incidents that have recently gripped the nation, underscoring a firm stance on road safety and the urgent need for a cultural change in driver behavior.
Citizens and residents of the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis and further afield. The Director of Public Prosecutions Office advises that Lennox Nathaniel Greaves of Molyneux St. Kitts has been formally charged with causing death by careless driving, contrary to Section 50, subsection 4 of the Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, in relation to the fatal accident which led to the death of Dr. Simoneth Williams. This tragic incident occurred on the night of December 20th, 2024, along the St. Peter's Main Road in the vicinity of New Road.
Following a meticulous review of all available evidence, including expert analysis from a professional road accident investigator, it was determined that Greaves, while driving an SUV licensed P9071, collided with Dr. Williams, who was a pedestrian at the time, while driving towards Bastyr. Importantly, the investigation cleared any suspicion of foul play or deliberate intent on the part of the driver.
The evidence does not support the existence of foul play nor deliberate intent on the part of the driver in relation to the cause of Dr. Williams' death.
Greaves was arrested and charged at the Bastyr police station on April 23, 2025. Turning to a separate but related concern, DPP Smith outlined a second case involving a charge of manslaughter by gross negligence connected to a fatal accident on March 22, 2025.
The Director of Public Prosecution's Office has advised the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force to charge an individual with manslaughter by gross negligence in relation to a fatal road accident which occurred on March 22nd, 2025, along the Island Main Road in the vicinity of Whitegate, Deep Bay. The victim in this case was Miss Shanique Vinnie Harvey, also of Deep Bay.
The DPP confirmed, emphasizing that the specifics would be addressed during court proceedings. Clarifying the gravity of such charges, DPP Smith explained,
Now, what is manslaughter by gross negligence? Well, manslaughter by gross negligence arises when a person, having a duty to take reasonable care, breaches that duty so seriously that it results in the death of another. Now, in the context of road usage, this can include reckless or dangerous driving practices. It is a very serious offense that carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Let me repeat that again. Causing death in these circumstances, manslaughter by gross negligence, carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment.
This stern reminder signals a decisive shift away from treating fatal road accidents as mere traffic infractions towards prosecuting serious breaches that endanger lives. The DPP underscored the heightened responsibility borne by public transportation operators, including bus and taxi drivers who carry multiple passengers simultaneously, warning that
the risk posed by negligent or reckless public service driving in the Federation is real and it is deadly.
Highlighting troubling trends witnessed firsthand, Smith did not mince his words.
I have personally witnessed troubling behaviors on our roads, to include overtaking on blind hills, overtaking while approaching roundabouts or corners, excessive speeding through residential zones, and excessive speeding on wet roads. Just a few. These actions are dangerous, irresponsible, and in many cases criminal. And if you cause death in these circumstances while driving in one of the manners previously aforesaid, you may be charged with manslaughter.
His unflinching appraisal captures the real risk and recklessness too often displayed on the nation's roadways. He made a heartfelt appeal to all motorists, stating clearly that
driving is a privilege that comes with serious responsibility, and motorists must be ever mindful of other road users, especially pedestrians, children, the elderly, the infirm, cyclists, and even animals. A moment's carelessness can destroy lives.
In a firm move toward broader accountability, the DPP office announced a heightened prosecutorial approach regarding injuries caused by negligent driving.
Going forward, the Director of Public Prosecution's Office will adopt a more robust approach where drivers cause injury, even if it does not result in death. The office will not hesitate to advise laying charges such as causing injury by willful neglect, willful misconduct, racing, or furious driving pursuant to the Offences Against the Person Act, and of course, where the circumstances so warrant.
Close his message. Smith issued a clear and urgent directive to all drivers.
In dark or familiar areas, drivers are strongly urged to reduce their speed to allow for appropriate evasive action where necessary. Safety, not speed, must be the guiding principle on our roads. Now let this message serve as a call to responsibility. Let us drive with care, with caution, and with respect for life. And may we continue to strive by the tenets of our national motto: country above self.
The charge against Lennox Nathaniel Greaves marks a critical moment in the nation's ongoing struggle against roadway fatalities and reckless driving, serving as both a somber reminder and a call for a renewed commitment to road safety vigilance. The legal process now moves forward as the Federation watches closely for justice in the wake of these heartbreaking losses. This latest development arrives amid growing concerns across St. Kitts and Nevis regarding driver conduct, with government and law enforcement increasingly focused on ensuring that the roads remain safe for all who travel them. The commitment expressed by DPP Smith to pursue charges to the fullest extent of the law reflects a tightening legal framework aimed at deterring dangerous behavior behind the wheel. As the nation takes stock of these sobering incidents, the words of the Director of Public Prosecutions offer a clear and resolute path forward. A culture of caution, responsibility, and respect for human life must guide every journey on the Federation's roads. The road safety message is unmistakable. Be warned, drive carefully, and respect the precious lives that depend on every decision made behind the wheel. Kristen Liebert of Stony Grove, Nevis, has been formally charged with several offenses related to cannabis, including possession of cannabis with intent to supply and importation of cannabis. The charges were officially laid on April 19, 2025, at the Cotton Ground Police Station, following an investigation into incidents occurring on April 17th of the same year. In addition to the cannabis-related charges, Liebert faces multiple charges brought by the St. Kitts Nevis Customs and Excise Department. These include importation of restricted goods, importation of goods packed in a manner to deceive a customs officer, importation of goods in a package holding a different description, and submitting a false declaration to a customs officer. These additional charges underscore the severity and complexity of the alleged offenses against Liebert, suggesting illicit attempts to circumvent customs regulations. Similarly, on the island of Nevis, Oriel Perkins of Government Road was charged on the same date, April 17, 2025, with possession of cannabis with intent to supply and cultivation of cannabis. Perkins's charges were formally reported at the Charlestown Police Station on April 17. Likewise, Julian Natta of Main Street, Charlestown, Nevis, was charged with possession of cannabis with intent to supply for an offense that took place on April 19, 2025, at the Charlestown Pier. Natta was swiftly arrested and charged at the Charlestown Police Station shortly after the incident. These recent legal actions preceded a landmark development in the Federation's approach to cannabis, the official launch of the Medicinal Cannabis Authority on April 25, 2025. The historic event was held in Bastille, where the authority also inaugurated its new office on Princes Street, marking a pivotal moment in national public health and economic policy. The Medicinal Cannabis Authority has been established with a clear mandate to oversee and regulate safe, legal access to medicinal cannabis for adult patients aged 21 and over, particularly those suffering from medical conditions that may benefit from such treatment. Its responsibilities extend beyond regulation and access to include public education efforts aimed at informing citizens about the benefits and risks associated with cannabis use, as well as stringent measures to prevent misuse and protect vulnerable groups. A significant feature of the authority's framework is the special provision under the Rastafari Rights Recognition Act 2023, which waives licensing fees for members of the Rastafarian community. The recognition underscores the government's commitment to inclusivity and respect for cultural and religious practices linked to cannabis use. While the Federation is moving steadily towards expanding legalized cultivation and use of cannabis within a regulated framework, It remains unequivocally clear that unlicensed or illegal possession, cultivation, and importation of cannabis continue to be criminal offenses under current law. The recent arrests and charges serve as a stark reminder that enforcement of these laws remain a priority for authorities, reinforcing the message that the progress of cannabis legalization does not equate to unregulated freedom. As St. Kitts and Nevis navigates this transitional period toward a regulated medicinal cannabis industry, stakeholders, citizens, and law enforcement alike will closely observe the impact of the Medicinal Cannabis Authority's operations, balancing economic opportunities, healthcare advancements, and public safety in the years ahead. In regional news,
the family of 11-year-old Adriana Young, who was found dead in the pool of that Tushin hotel, are still seeking justice. And family members are expressing no confidence in the Guyana Police Force carrying out any impartial and thorough investigation into her death. In a statement from the family's attorney Darren Wade on behalf of the family is calling on the government to invite the Federal Bureau of Investigation or Scotland Yard or the Royal Mounted Branch of Canada to investigate the incident. The family is also asking the government to disclose information regarding the foreign pathologist to be brought in to perform the post-mortem on the young child's body. The family is also asking the Guyana Police Force to make contact with their attorney. According to the attorney, that request is as a result of the family complaining that the police force has been approaching various family members and they're not comfortable with some of those approaches. The family's attorney has indicated that his office is currently in communication with a North American-based pathologist, and that pathologist is working on the possibility of traveling to Guyana this weekend or early next week to perform the post-mortem. The family members met with President Irfan Ali at Tushin, expressing their own concerns to the president. Meanwhile, outrage over the death of the 11-year-old residents of Region 3 picketed outside the Lenora police station. During the protest action, the dead girl's mother, Amitsa Simon, stood at the front of the picket line and cried out for justice. The protesters accused the Guyana Police Force of attempting to cover up the girl's death and the circumstances surrounding her death. In tears, the grieving mother told reporters that hours after her daughter went missing, the police force refused to act.
Matt is the one that put my child in that pool. He put my child here and it was distracting me all the time. And the commander knew that they had my daughter here and telling me I must go home. They got to go. They got to go.
With the Guyana Police Force offering no information to the family on the investigation so far, new questions are being raised.
Where is the owner for Double Day? Hotel. Where is there? Where is the owner? Where is he? Where is the owner?
Questions to the Guyana Police Force on the issue from the media have also gone unanswered. In a statement, the family, through their attorney Darren Wade, said despite the urgency of the situation, the police initially refused to carry out a sweep of the building and compound where the young girl went missing. Young's family said in addition to being misled by the police, they spent several distressing hours pleading for immediate action to no avail. They said they have no confidence in the Guyana Police Force.
Attorney General and Minister for Legal Affairs Senator Claudette Joseph announced that as part of the celebration for the World Intellectual Property Day 2025, all fees for creators will be waived for a period of 1 month.
I wish to take this opportunity to reaffirm Grenada's support for the creative industries and for creatives in the music industry in particular. And in this regard, I am pleased to announce that as part of the celebration of World IP Day 2025 and as an incentive for creatives to register their trademarks with KIPO, we will waive the trademark application fee of $250 with respect to trademark application. So from Monday the 28th, I have an error in my notes here, that's why I paused, through May 30th.
Senator Joseph highlighted Grenada's rich pool of creative talent, noting that many artists remain unaware of the intellectual property tools available to them, as well as their rights beyond basic copyright protection.
You can register your trademarks, protect your brand. You can also take advantage. If you Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office also deals with the registration of businesses and companies. So take advantage and register your trademarks, register your brand during this period, and learn more about the various IP tools and your intellectual property rights.
The Attorney General also outlined the government's ongoing efforts to secure accession to the Madrid Protocol, an international treaty that facilitates trademark protection across multiple countries.
Consultations with stakeholders reveal broad support for accession to the Madrid Protocol, with creatives in the music sector being some of the strongest advocates for our accession. In this regard, I am pleased to confirm that the preparation for accession to the Madrid Protocol is at an advanced stage, and we are aiming to accede within the first half of this year. So we only have a few months, Mr. Branch. You have a lot of work to do. And so we would implement, and we are looking to implement the Madrid Protocol during the second half of this year.
Under the Madrid Protocol, any artist who registers a trademark in a participating country will automatically gain protection in all 131 member states. This means, for example, a soca artist would not need to file separate trademark applications in each country where protection is desired. Instead, a single application can be submitted to the International Bureau of the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, with no legal or translation fees required. These services are covered by WIPO.
So what is the Madrid Protocol? The Madrid Protocol is an international trademark treaty administered by the World Intellectual Property Organization, and it facilitates the efficient and cost-effective registration of trademarks in 131 countries.
Chrislina John, GBN News.
We now bring you these international reports.
In the shadow of St. Peter's Basilica, tens of thousands of people gathered to bid a final farewell to the man who led the Roman Catholic Church for more than a decade. Known by many as the People's Pope, Pope Francis won many admirers for his advocacy on behalf of marginalized peoples. Major figures came from around the world: kings and queens, leaders of other Christian churches, presidents and prime ministers. Among them, US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who held a meeting ahead of the ceremony. All of these dignitaries gathered here to pay their respects.
Deus immortalis pastor.
O God, immortal shepherds of souls, look at your people's prayers and grant that your servant Pope Francis, who presided over your church in charity, may, with the flock entrusted to his care, receive from your mercy the reward of a faithful steward.
The papal funeral service was comprised of prayers, tributes, and rituals, following in the footsteps of traditions going back centuries. 9 days of mourning will follow, with Mass held every day in his memory. But Pope Francis had also requested breaks from tradition. Instead of an elaborate coffin of cypress, lead, and oak, he'd asked for a more modest design. Francis had a reputation for being humble and rejecting the luxuries of high office. He said he wanted to be seen as a follower of Christ, rather than a powerful man of this world. After the funeral mass, another unusual step. A papal procession through Rome, something that hasn't been seen in generations. The bodies of popes are usually interred in the Vatican, but Pope Francis wanted to be buried elsewhere. The procession passed many of Rome's most famous landmarks before finally arriving at its destination, the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. Fintan Monaghan, Al Jazeera.
But just minutes before the start of the funeral, as we've been reporting, a brief meeting was held inside St. Peter's Basilica by President Trump of the US and President Zelensky of Ukraine. It was their first face-to-face discussion since that angry exchange in the Oval Office. Well, let's cross to the World News correspondent Joe Inwood. And Joe, tell me a bit more about what we found out about how that meeting went between the two men. I expect it didn't last very long.
It didn't last very long, but it was certainly a lot better tempered, a lot more cordial than the last time they met. You'll remember, of course, that terrible bust-up in the White House. What we do have from President Zelensky is his version of events on social media. He posted, "We discussed a lot one-on-one, hoping for results on everything we covered, protecting the lives of our people, full and unconditional ceasefire." And the phrase he used is that it has the potential to be historic. Of course, today wasn't a day for politics. This wasn't what it was about. But obviously, when the two men met, the opportunity couldn't be passed up. Now, this is all in the context, of course, of the ongoing attempts by the American government to get at some sort of ceasefire deal. Some see pressure the Ukrainians into some sort of deal that would see them giving up territory to Russia. Now, just a couple of days ago, in fact, just yesterday, I believe, we had President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, in Moscow to speak to Vladimir Putin. There was suggestion that they're not far from a deal. So it is possible something was discussed here, something came out of this that really, if it shifted President Trump's thinking, because I think it's unlikely it would have shifted President Zelensky's necessarily on the idea of giving up territory. But if someone has moved their positions, then it really would be a fitting event to have taken place at the funeral of Pope Francis, a man who spoke about peace his entire life.
Coming from Iran, there's been a massive explosion at a major port in the south of the country. State media says at least 406 people have been injured. From the scene of that explosion, a plume of smoke has been rising over the Rajai port. That's in the city of Bandar Abbas. Glass was reportedly shattered within several kilometres of the blast. An indication of the size and scale of it. Firefighters and the Red Crescent are at the site. Authorities are still investigating the cause of that blast. We'll, of course, monitor those developments, but for the time being, let's go to Tawhid Asadi, who joins us from Tehran. Tawhid, any more details on what's happened here?
Well, actually, there was a massive explosion that took place in Shahid Rajai port in Hormuzgan province near Bandar Abbas city of Iran. Let's say it was really massive, so strong that the, explosion sound was heard kilometers away from the scene. And right now, the live footage by the state TV indicates that the fire is still active and the smoke is coming out of the scene. If you just look at the statements coming from Iranian officials, the cause is not clear yet. It is reportedly said by the state TV that an explosion by a container or, a tank containing inflammable material has caused it, but it's still investigations. Further scrutiny is underway according to different Iranian officials. The initial report by Fars news agency was 46 people injured, but 2 hours after that, it increased by 10 times. And now the latest lines coming that we've got more than 400 people injured. And looking at the scene, the casualties are still gravely feared with respect to the intensity of the active fire there. And there are footages of nearby buildings and cars showing huge destruction. And we've got this statement, latest line from the oil companies of the country saying that the infrastructures related to the oil refinery is not touched. It continues its operation. It's not related to oil infrastructures of the country. So far, this is what we have, but still we are waiting for further updates as it's an active scene and as the fire continues.
Virginia Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault, has died. Her family say that she took her own life at her home in Australia. She was 41. Last month, it was reported she'd been in a serious car crash. She claimed disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and his friend Ghislaine Maxwell had trafficked her when she was 17. Prince Andrew denied all the accusations against him but reached an out-of-court settlement with her in 2022. Katie Watson reports.
Virginia Giuffre was one of the most prominent accusers of Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced US financier accused of running a vast sex trafficking network. Giuffre claimed she was trafficked by him and forced to have sex with the Duke of York, photo of them together, now infamous. Prince Andrew, though, has always denied the accusations. He reached an out-of-court settlement with her in 2022 that contained no admission of liability or apology. In an interview with Panorama in 2019, she stood by the accusations.
He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth.
In a statement, Virginia Giuffre's family said she was a fierce warrior in the fight against sexual abuse and sex trafficking. She was the light that lifted so many survivors. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy that it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight. We know that she is with the angels. Born in the US, the 41-year-old had recently been living with her children and husband close to Perth, but recent reports suggest the couple had split after 22 years of marriage. Earlier this month, she posted on Instagram to say that she'd been seriously injured in a car accident, which her family later said she had not intended to make public. Local police later disputed the severity of the crash. Western Australia police say they are not treating her death as suspicious. Katie Watson, BBC News in Sydney.
I'd like to speak to our Sydney correspondent, Phil Mercer. Phil, what more have the family said?
We've had a pretty poignant statement from Virginia Giuffre's family saying that she was a heroic and courageous campaigner against sexual abuse, and that the stance that she took was a light that lifted the lives of survivors of abuse around the world. So we know that the police and the ambulance authorities in Western Australia were called to a home in the near Gabby area. This is to the north of Perth, the state capital of Western Australia, on Friday evening. And the authorities say that Ms. Giuffre was found there unresponsive, and that family statement saying that she had died by suicide, and that the weight of the abuse that her family say that she has suffered became too heavy, and in the end, for Ms. Giuffre, became unbearable.
But she very much became a figurehead, didn't she, for other survivors of abuse?
Yes, she was a prominent, not only a prominent accuser of Jeffrey Epstein and his friends, the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison for sex trafficking offences. She was also a prominent campaigner for the Me Too movement. She had alleged that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had trafficked her to Britain's Prince Andrew when she was 17 years of age. Prince Andrew has always strenuously denied these allegations, but in 2022, the Prince did reach an out-of-court settlement with Ms. Giuffre. We don't know the specific details of that settlement, but clearly Virginia Giuffre suffering under the weight, according to her family, of the abuse that they say she suffered repeatedly in certain periods of her life.
And tell us more about this car accident. She said that she'd been seriously injured.
This was a post on Instagram in the last month or so, and these are just suppositions, but perhaps when you look into the details of that post online, it may give an indication of the fragility of her state of mind. Virginia Giuffre had said that she'd been involved in a very serious car accident to such a degree that she said online that she only had a few days to live. So there was enormous concern by the people close to her and other people about her physical and mental state. And what was interesting, that the police in Western Australia downplayed the severity of that accident, but of course her death will be investigated by the authorities in Western Australia. And once again, this is only supposition, but having an episode like that so public in the last few weeks ago does perhaps indicate the fragility of her mental state. And her family say that she fought this heroic fight against sexual abuse and took her life by suicide, and she was 41 years of age.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: ECCB highlights young women leaders in IT on Girls in ICT Day. Director of Public Prosecutions Adlai Smith updates nation on charges in 2 fatal road incidents amidst calls for greater road safety vigilance. Cannabis-related crimes persist as St. Kitts and Nevis continues legal cannabis industry push with launch of Medicinal Cannabis Authority. The family of Adriana Young has no confidence in the Guyana Police Force leading probe. Preparations for Madrid Protocol entry accession are underway in Grenada. Internationally, Pope Francis's funeral, respects paid to Roman Catholic leader. Thank you for listening.